I'm just going to make sure that I put the link over into our group, so just give me a minute while I do that. And I got a lot of stuff to go over today, so I'm looking forward to telling you guys about this next location that we have booked, so it's going to be pretty awesome. All right, let me just copy this. All right, make sure the comments are on. All right, so I'll wait for a few people to jump in here. Make sure I share the link with the group and then our Facebook page. All right, one more. All right, just give me 1 second, guys, while I upload this. So I'm just uploading the links to the group here, so that's why I'm not really talking right now. Just give me a couple of minutes. Wait for a couple people to jump on. All right. It's shared. All right. All right, so thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, I want to try to do this like every Sunday, so that way we can get, just like a recap of what we've been doing for the week, what we have coming up for the month, and subsequent like summer months and stuff like that. Let me just get my board out here that tells me I have everything written down, like spread around my office, so that way I can kind of just quickly glance at it and let you guys know what we have upcoming. So the first thing I wanted to talk about real quick was the public investigation that we have coming up on April 2nd, Saturday. So that one is booked. That one actually booked up really quick, but I've already spoken to the owner about maybe adding another date, because there's a lot of interest in that. So if you guys didn't get a chance to get in on this investigation, we are talking to the owner about opening up more dates, so that way we can continue hosting investigations there. So a little bit more information about that is we think typically it's going to be about a 4 p.m. to midnight investigation. So typically about 8 hours is the average length for a investigation, but you are welcome to stay the night there. She does allow you to sleep in like the library room. She says just bring like an air mattress or something like that if anyone who's coming is driving like a long distance and doesn't want to drive. For our team, it's only about an hour and a half away, so typically we don't stay the night. We just head home. So depending on who is coming, how far you're coming, that is an option that is available, and we are looking forward to doing that. So, hi Christina, how's it going? Yeah, so I'm excited about this live stream because we actually just booked another location for July 16th. It's the Crescent Sanitarium, and that place is absolutely nuts. I'm just hoping that a couple more people will jump on, and then we can talk about it. I mean, again, even if you aren't watching this live, if you're just watching it on the playback, make sure you watch this video because we're going to be talking about this sanitarium. That the sanitarium's absolutely nuts. So I just wanted to touch base about a few things first with the Chase public investigation that's coming up April 2nd. Next Saturday, we are going to Allegiance Bed and Breakfast, so make sure you guys are watching the channel for that. I like to try to go live at least once during our investigations. So again, let us know in like the comment section. Let us know in the Facebook group what time you guys would rather see us live. Because I know everyone's schedule is different, but we try to go live a little bit later in the night, typically around like 8 or 9 p.m. Sometimes we've gone later, as late as like 10 or midnight or something like that. But just shoot us a comment. I mean, the more people that are vocal about it, we'll try to accommodate and, you know, make sure we go live during those times so that way you guys can watch the investigations live as it's happening. So, but I guess I'll just start getting into the Crescent Sanitarium and some of the history behind it and some of the claims. So, Crescent Sanitarium. This one I've actually, if you're on Facebook and you're on to like paranormal groups and stuff like that, you've probably seen this place advertised in some of the Ghost Hunts USA, I think, runs investigations there. So what we're doing is we are renting it out for like a private investigation. So we're excited about that. So that way we can kind of like do our own investigation without like having to follow any type of like rigid structure, I guess you'd call it, during those public investigations. So pretty much we are getting like 6 buildings to ourselves because it's a shared investigation, but it's private. So another team may be there, but we don't know who it is yet. I'm going to try to find out who it is. So that way we can kind of coordinate with them. But there's 12 buildings on the property that are set to be haunted, and each team will get 6 buildings. So a lot of times when we go to investigations, we only have like 1 or 2 buildings. So just getting 6 is going to be awesome. And then you are allowed to like swap buildings with other people as well. So I'm not really sure like which buildings are the most haunted or anything like that. That's something that we got to dig a little bit more into. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the history of the sanitarium, just because I knew it was like a former prison, it was a former sanitarium, but that's all I really knew about it until I just started looking up some more information. And it's actually pretty interesting. So this is located in Lilly, PA. It's about 5.5 hours from us. It was known as the San for people who were there at one point, I guess. Now, buildings and locations like this, I think it also, a lot of it depends on who you talk to, because this was like a multifunctional location where it served a lot of different purposes. So a little bit about like the start of it, I guess, is in 1913. The location was pretty much a tuberculosis hospital between 1913 and 1964. So for 50 years, the primary function of this was as a tuberculosis hospital during the outbreak, and it treated more than 40,000 patients. So I haven't been able to find like a death toll, because normally tuberculosis was like a fatal disease. I mean, a lot of people didn't get cured from it. So I'm not sure how much of those 40,000 survived, if any. Like I don't know, so I got to dig into that a little bit more. It was also known to be the first racially integrated location. Now, I'm not sure if that was as the sanitarium or when it later became like a school of nursing. I'm not quite sure because it was used as a school of nursing from 1914 to 1952. There was an elementary school there. So, like I said, this place has had multi purpose functioning, I guess you'd call it. So it also operated as both a hospital and a long-term residential care facility. So I think the timeline is it opened first as a sanitarium, and then after 1964, it was used as a mental hospital. Well, I think actually in between the sanitarium and the mental hospital, it was used as a regular hospital for long-term residential care facility, and then it became a state hospital in the 60s. Um, and then it later became a medium security correctional facility for male inmates in 1987. The renovation started in 1984, so 3 years they converted it into a prison, and it's closed. It closed in 2013, so it ran as a prison for 26 years. And there's a whole bunch of different buildings on there too. Like there's a auto mechanic school, there's a body shop, like I said, there's an elementary school there. So a little bit more of like the dating, because like certain websites that I would come across, they would just say it opened as a mental hospital or opened up as like a long-term care facility, and then it was a prison. So the dates I got to kind of figure out which ones are exactly correct. But one date I came across was June 1956. The official name was the Lawrence Flick State Hospital, and then it became known as the Allegheny State Hospital. So, like I said, this place is known by dozens of different names, like just for instance, the Lawrence Flick State Hospital, the Crescent Sanitarium, the Crescent State Prison, the Allegheny State Hospital. In 1964, it was renamed to the Allegheny State School or Hospital, and then it was also known as a Crescent Center from 1970 to 1982. So, like I said, this place has had multiple like names pretty much. So, I'm wondering when we go in there to investigate, um, as far as like getting some intelligent responses, if it is indeed haunted, if we use different names, if we're going to get different responses based on what we call it. Just because that's, if there is a spirit still there that's, lingering around, they're going to recognize it by the name that it was known to them. So it was known as SCI Crescent. That was what the hospital was named. Um, I'm not sure what that, maybe the State Correctional Institution of Crescent is what I'm guessing. So, hey John, how's it going? Yeah, so I'm just describing the new investigation that we have for July 16th. So it's the Crescent Sanitarium, which was a sanitarium, and then it was like a hospital slash long-term care facility, and then it was a legit mental asylum, and then it was a prison. So a lot of times when you go to these haunted locations, um, you know, whether it's a sanitarium by itself, a hospital by itself, an asylum by itself, I mean, that's all like kind of like a breeding ground for hauntings potentially. But now you get this location that served as four of the major, you know, facilities that create hauntings, and it's no wonder that there's claims of this being haunted. Um, so it's 300 acres, and I heard there's 20 buildings. Another website said 34. So I'm not sure if there's 34 buildings at one point, and now it's down to 20. Sometimes they demolish some buildings. We've seen that a lot at Pennhurst Asylum, where it started off as a lot larger building count, and then as the years go by, they can't save them, or they're just too far gone to do any preservation work. But even on the low end, I heard there's 20 buildings, 12 are set to be haunted. And like I said, our group is going to get specifically assigned to 6 of them. And she said we are also allowed to, like, coordinate with other team that's there, because it's not a public investigation, but it's a shared private, because the location is so big they can have multiple teams there, and you won't even see each other because you get 6 buildings, they get 6 buildings. So I'm kind of excited to see what team we're kind of paired up with, and to see what happens there. So just reading some of the other websites of like the public investigations and the buildings that they are allowed to go into, Yeah, John. So I think it depends on what type of haunting it is. If it's like a residual haunting where they're kind of like stuck on like a time loop kind of, then they might think it's their current year. But if they are like an intelligent haunting where they're a spirit that just doesn't want to leave the location, they should be aware that, it's the current year 2022. So, hi, hey Ames, thanks for joining in. Like I said, we're just talking about the Crescent Sanitarium. John had a good question. Is this? Let me just pull it back up here so I can. Yeah, they should be aware of the change in environment. That's what John just asked. That's a good question. It does depend on what type of haunting you believe you're dealing with. In something like this, we could potentially be dealing with both. Because of that much negative energy in a building, um, that building could be grounds of both hauntings. It could be the residual energy from when it was a sanitarium, and it could be because of the negative energy trapped in there from the time it was a prison. It could be an intelligent haunting where the spirit just doesn't want to leave, or they're very protective of that environment. So, like I was saying, there's 12 buildings that are said to be the most haunted, and the ones that we know we have access to are the tunnel system that's underneath it. So you're talking about the Crescent Hotel. Yeah, we would love to get out west and do a lot of investigations. So the more you guys support the channel, the more revenue we could hopefully potentially bring in by getting monetized, and then putting all that money back into gas or hotel rooms or whatever we need to try to investigate some locations that are further out. So because right now we're pretty much sticking to like New York and like the surrounding area. We've been to like Connecticut, we've been to Rhode Island, we've been to Vermont, the Crescent Sanitariums in Pennsylvania. So yeah, the more you guys support the channel, the more we'd love to try to make our way out, to other locations that are, a little bit harder logistically to get to. But some of the buildings that we're going to have access to are the medical psychiatric building, the sanitarium itself, the hospital, the end of life holding cell block. So I'm actually very curious to see what that cell block is. Um, so they said the end of life holding cell block. So I'm not sure if that's inmates who were like terminally ill. I'm not sure if they had like a death row and they did executions here. Because like I said, well, actually, I don't think I mentioned it, but it was known as a medium security prison, but it did house murderers and it housed actually a famous serial killer. Um, there's also the J cell block, which is said to be the most haunted. So I'm not sure if that's where maybe the serial killer that was his cell block, maybe. And then there's a chapel there, which is pretty creepy. So I mean, most prisons have like a chapel area and stuff like that. So this is the part that was pretty kind of mind blowing when I was researching it because I read the only downside is that they're an active working daily hotel. Yeah, so that is kind of a stumbling block when you're trying to do like a proper investigation. I mean, bigger shows obviously, like a bigger production like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or something, they'll be able to get the whole building to themselves where, you know, us like our small team won't be able to have that type of flex where we can just go in and say, "Hey, let's investigate the whole building." So, um but yeah, that would definitely be something that we would, keep keep an eye out on, and if that's something that we can potentially do eventually, we definitely will. So there's this location when it was used as a prison did have murderers there. One man by the name of John DuPont, he was housed there until he died in 2010. So it was actually a functional prison, like I said, from 87 to 2013. Um, and it's actually purchased now by some like agricultural company um, that does something with hemp there. I actually think so, but they're opening it up for tours to the actual like prison part and sanitarium part. So I'm sorry, I missed that last comment. So your own personal experience is pretty crazy. You had so much happening around me when I was staying there. Oh, that's awesome. So I'll get to go to the Conjuring House. Yeah, we actually we investigated the Conjuring House back in 2019. I actually followed them on their Facebook page. It's actually not known as the Conjuring House on their Facebook page just because of like legal purposes. They couldn't own the rights to that domain because of the movies. So their Facebook page is actually the farm on Round Top Road, and that's how I messaged the owners for the Conjuring House. So as soon as they bought it over the summertime, and I'm like, hey guys, let me know as soon as you guys open it up for private investigations. And sure enough, Corey, the owner, messaged me, and that's when we got in there. So we were actually, I don't want to say the first team to investigate it, but we were one of the first few teams to actually investigate it when they opened up because we went there December of 2019, which was awesome. So, oh yeah, Pennhurst. We do have a couple videos on there from Pennhurst Asylum. So when I was actually researching this location, it reminded me a lot of Pennhurst as far as like being like the mental institution type part, and it also reminded me some of Hillview Manor because Hillview Manor was more like a long-term care facility slash hospital slash like asylum. It wasn't. I don't want to go as far as to say it was a prison, but I think some of the patients there were known as inmates depending on like the severity of like their behavior. So a lot of these places, I mean, there's a very fine line between it being known as a hospital or a sanitarium or asylum or prison. So, but it sounds like this location was functionally all four. Um, yeah, Ames, we really appreciate that. Our Pennhurst video, we captured some crazy activity there. Same thing with Hillview Manor. Neither of those locations let us down. So it certainly lived up to its expectations of being as haunted as people say it is. Um, so the craziest thing about this prison was I heard there's a serial killer that was housed there and died there. So I quickly Googled the name. The name is Joseph Callinger or Callinger, if I'm pronouncing it right. And he was on suicide watch there for 11 years, which that's a crazy amount of time. I'm not sure anybody who's familiar with like the prison system, but being on suicide watch for 11 years, that seems like that's just an insane amount of time to be on suicide watch. And he actually passed away March 26th of 1996, and I believe he passed away right on location or in the prison cell. So I'm interested to see if the J cell block is the block where he actually passed away. Um, but the craziest part about it, when I Googled his name, he had a nickname, and his nickname was the Shoemaker, which I was kind of shocked when I saw that just because my last name is Shoemaker. So just it was a pretty funny coincidence that the one most notorious serial killer in the location that we're investigating had my last name as the nickname. So yeah, John. So I mean, if he was a serial killer that passed away on the property and he was on suicide watch for 11 years, I mean, that's got to be some anguish there. Um, so you would think he would be, I mean, you would think it, if anything dark was haunting this prison, that would be like textbook um, grounds for a haunting would be a serial killer that was on suicide watch for 11 years and died on location. Um, he murdered three people. He tortured four families. And the most sick part about it, I mean, if that's not sick enough, which it is, he had his 12-year-old son as an accomplice for like the latter part of his crimes. So I'm not sure if that was just torturing the families, killing. I'm not sure. Like I said, this was just a really quick preliminary Google search I did. And you can't 100% trust what you see on Google. I mean, obviously, Google is just a search engine where, brings up articles. Then you got to kind of wade through those articles to see which ones have some merit to them, which ones are like actually reputable sources. But that was just crazy to me. I mean, out of all the places we've gone to, I don't think we've had like a. I mean, the Virgin House was said to maybe home house a serial killer at one point that would snatch orphans off a train. Um, so, but I think this is the first place where we had a confirmed person or entity that had that much history. So, sociopaths are so good at manipulating people to do things for them. Yeah, 100%. I actually sent my team a group message, and there's a book written about this guy. Let me actually see if I can pull it up. Let me see. Actually, I don't think I sent it to him. It's on my phone, and that's what I'm using to live stream. But the book was actually called "The Shoemaker Autonomy of a Psychopath." I think is the exact term of the book that was written about this guy. So, I personally never heard of him before, um, but I'm certainly going to look more into it because, like I said, we like to go into these investigations with a little bit more background information that we can use for potentially like drawing out some of these entities and getting them to communicate with us. So that was just crazy when I heard that. So um, yeah, so Joseph Callinger. I actually have a book back here. I mean, if you guys can see, like behind me, here's serial killer. I actually have serial killer book right here. So let me just see if his name's in here by chance. Just Joseph Calendar. Might not be, because this book was published 2005 and he died in 96, so he might not be known. I don't see him in here. There's a table of contents of all the serial killers that are in this book. So, and there's like the Zodiac Killer, the Green River Killer, Ted Bundy, obviously, Jack the Ripper. So, just that. Having key talking points to get them to engage with you is probably really important. That's why I think you guys are nuts. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, you bring up a good point. Is the key talking points is vital. Because sometimes teams will go in there, and I mean every team's kind of guilty of it, where we're like, hey, how did you die? What is your name? The very basic generic questions that probably 100 investigators before us have asked. That's why we try to get a little bit more personal on our investigations, because we really try to keep in mind that these were once living people, that if they're still an intelligent haunting, they're gonna react to us more so as if we're going in there and having like an intelligent conversation with them. So, but it all depends on the spirit itself too. They may just be a negative entity that doesn't want people there regardless, and no amount of communicating is going to get them to open up and talk, whereas other spirits are more welcoming and they're actually like nice spirits, I guess you would classify them as, and they would be more apt to give you some responses, where the darker ones might just like growl at you or something like that. So and that is where we got to be careful too, because that's where you can open yourself up to some attachment. So that's why we're very careful. We don't try to provoke. We don't try to go in there like, Zach Bagans and just start yelling, obscenities at spirits and, get stuff attached to us that we bring home to our families and stuff like that. We try to go in there respectfully, but at the same time documenting the history there and documenting the paranormal um, activity that we get there. So, but yeah, guys, that's pretty much a quick, very brief rundown as it gets closer. I might actually try to put together a video of everything that happened at this place, because there's so much layers to this place, and any paranormal investigator will tell you that the buildings with what seems like to be the most layers of history are the buildings and locations that you tend to see more paranormal activity at, just because there's so much energy that has flowed through that building and flowed through that location. And that's just like a perfect recipe for a haunting. So another quick thing I want to talk just before we wrap up this live is If anybody has a chance to watch the new Ghost Hunters episode, I think it's called Moonshiners or something to that effect. They actually went to White Hill Mansion, which was an investigation that we went to um, last year. It was almost a year ago today. It was in 2021, and it was White Hill Mansion in Pennsylvania. We actually did that location right after Pennhurst Asylum, and just I like watching these shows when they go there because I like to see how similar of experiences we get, and we actually got like a pretty dark entity. I don't want to say it was demonic or anything like that, but like maybe like a grumpier male spirit in the basement speakeasy, and they seem to have gotten the same thing. In the latest video I just published, it was kind of like a quick recap of the Hillview Manor. We have two, or not Hillview Manor, of White Hill Mansion. We have two videos from White Hill Mansion from about a year ago. One's just like a full walkthrough video, and the other one is like a half-hour investigation video. So what I did was I took like the key like best evidence from that half-hour investigation and condensed it down to about 6 minutes. So if you guys want to watch a quick recap video from White Hill Mansion, and if you guys have Discovery Plus or anything like that where you can watch that Ghost Hunters episode, watch it because it's kind of interesting to see how our experiences correlated with each other. And we actually did capture a shadow in the speakeasy when we were down there, and we had the paranormal music box going off. Something was triggering it from like a dark hallway, and Brad and Amanda were sitting at the bar not moving, and I was standing behind the bar filming down into the hallway, and I was standing still, and you see a shadow pass from right to left, and that's actually what we believe triggered the music box, and we captured EVPs down there as well too. So that's another thing that I like to do is I like to mix up the videos where we'll have an hour long straight video for like the whole walkthrough, the whole investigation itself, and then some people only like watching short videos. Some people like watching the whole video where you can watch the whole walkthrough, watch us setting up to get investigating done, setting up and like talking about the history. So I try to do a healthy mix of both where we'll have longer videos for people that like to watch longer ones. And then every so often I'll throw up a video of like just the evidence. I did that with Greystone Manor as well. So that way, if you just want to watch a quick 5 to 10 minute video, I'm putting those up on the channel as well. Kind of, mixed bag for everybody. So that way there's something for everybody on the channel. So I just actually missed the last comment here. So let me just go back to it. So the longer they're stuck in the veil could be the reason for a lot of their anger. Is that right? It could be. So what John is referring to is a lot of people refer to it as like the veil, which is like, I guess, the threshold between the living and the spirit world. And I've talked to some mediums some psychics and mediums who say that spirits aren't really stuck. They choose to be here. So I'm not sure. I'm not like a psychic or a medium, but I think it depends on who you talk to. Because some of them may say they're stuck, but they might just not be willing to move on. Whereas some of them may not know how to move on, even though there might always be that ability to. That's why we study this field, because we simply don't know. But yeah, I think if it's a spirit who feels like they're stuck, they might get frustrated, they might get more anger, and that could be too the reasoning behind like the confusion of what people call a demonic or a dark entity. So they may not be able to talk, they may not be able to like do what we would say would be like a disembodied voice or like an EVP. They might just get so frustrated to the point where they like reach out and try to like grab you, and that might be what like the scratches are. That might be like when people feel a push, that might be the only form of communication that the spirit has to grab your attention. I don't know. I think it does depend on the nature of the haunting itself. There are probably just some spirits that are just dark. Like some people have said before, spirits are simply the soul without the human body. So if you're an asshole in life, you're going to be an asshole as a spirit if you don't choose to move on or choose to, cross over, or whatever the terminology you may want to use. So quick story just from last night, my son and I were on the couch watching a movie, and we heard, so backstory, my house is slightly haunted. It was built in 1883. We've gotten EVPs, we've gotten porta box, we've gotten disembodied voices that I've heard. Long story short, we just feel like it's a male spirit who just kind of lingers here, kind of in and out. But me and my son both heard a weird noise from the kitchen. Our living room's attached right to our kitchen, so we both looked over, kind of shrugged it off. And then 5 minutes later, a pitcher smashes on the ground, like a pitcher off of our wall. So it's pretty nuts because I go over there, and I'm like, we heard the glass breaking, so we knew something got, hit the floor. And the pitcher that got thrown off the wall, we know it didn't just fall because the way that it was hanging on the wall, it was hanging like on a nail where it had to be like lifted up and then like over the nail to fall down. And there was another decorative, like, not picture, but like a sign underneath it. So if the picture fell straight down, it would have knocked that sign off as well. So it's kind of funny because we kind of heard the noise and then we ignored it. So if there's a spirit trying to get our attention, we ignored it. Well, once that picture flew off the wall, it certainly got our attention. So, some may call that like poltergeist activity. So that may be just a spirit being frustrated that, hey, I made a sound in the kitchen. You guys both looked over and ignored me. So now this picture is going to come flying off the wall. And I'm actually going to post this video because I had my digital recorder right in my office. So I ran and got that, did an EVP session. And then I brought out my REM pod. So let me show you this REM pod real quick. So we are trying to communicate with whatever spirit, threw that picture off. So here's my REM pod. So as you guys can see, I'm going to turn it on real quick. So let me just kind of angle this so you guys can see the REM pod. So if you touch it, it lights up, right? So you guys can obviously hear the sound of what that sounds like. Actually, I still have it pulled up on my recorder, so I'll just show you guys live what we captured on this recorder. So on this, you'll see there's also a little light. My index finger is going to be pointing right at it. So that, not this big one here, but this little one here also turns red, and that's a temperature sensor for fluctuations in the room temperature. So that was not the sound going off, but this was making some beeping. Let me just pull this up for you guys. So here's my digital recorder. We just had the REM pod out there.
Did you just say something? I was Charlie. Oh, it's okay. Charlie, making noises. That sounds like Morse code.
So that was the REM pod going off. Let me turn this off so you guys can hear me.
Did you just use?
So that was this device going off, and none of these lights were lighting up, and this wasn't lighting up. It was just making that beeping sound, which, I mean, I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with, what Morse code sounds like, but they're pretty much long burst and short burst of beeps like that. So I'm actually going to try to figure out if that was anything intelligent, and try to play back that audio recording and see if it was indeed Morse code. So let me know if you guys are watching this video back, if you are familiar with Morse code by chance. Let me know if that sounds like Morse code to you guys, because I'm going to look into it myself a little bit and see if it in fact was. So I know John asked another question. Can you tell the difference between the two, a dark entity and a happy one? Not sure what you call one that happy one. I think so. I mean, I think a lot of times your body will tell you too, like you will get like a feeling of dread, or you'll get like very apprehensive. I mean, I think our bodies are like physiological response, like goosebumps, hair standing up in the back of your neck. Some people are more sensitive, where they're more like an empath or something like that, where they will literally feel nauseous. Um, and I think it depends on your experience too, because you may, like, say you've never investigated, you've never had like an experience with anything paranormal, and you walk into a building and you hear a voice, you might get freaked out and instantly think, oh man, that's scary. Um, but I think you can feel the darker entities. Sometimes people who are more in tune with the spirit world, um, they're more sensitive. Um, I think they can sense whether it's a, some of them can actually sense like whether it's a sad spirit, if it's a happy spirit that just, wants to stay in that particular location, or if it's a dark spirit that's very protective that says like get out. I think on YouTube especially you see the word demonic thrown out there quite a bit, and it's 99% of the time it's not. I don't want to say that I don't believe in demonic hauntings. I think there can be, but I think the majority of them, if it is that bad, it's probably just a dark entity that's really pissed off that, just the fact that you can't, like, imagine someone who's like really mean in real life, mean spirited, like a nasty person in spirit form. That could be like what is quote unquote demonic, but it's going to amplify that feeling of it being demonic because you can't see it. So, say you get somebody who's really mad and angry and, they're just a spirit form, you're going to probably misconstrue that as being like a demonic entity because it's so angry and, powerful. But like I said, this is something where, depending on who you talk to, you're going to get different answers. We actually talked to a owner who said, Chip Coffee, who's a psychic medium, he has a very strong Catholic upbringing. So when he feels like these presents, he's been kind of conditioned and been taught to believe like, oh, that's the devil or that's demonic. So, like, I'm not saying one group is right or wrong, but I think it does, a lot of it is based on your upbringing and, your religious background too. If you believe if, something is demonic or just dark. So I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer, just, personal belief. So, but yeah, so that's what we have coming up. We have the Legion's Bed and Breakfast coming up April 12th. So, or I'm sorry, March 12th. So that's next Saturday. So be sure you guys are, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. We appreciate it. Hit that notification bell because it does allow, or it does notify you when we go live from locations. So yeah, we have that coming up March 12th. We have the Shanley Hotel May 14th. That's another supposed to be the most haunted hotel on the East Coast. We're very excited about that. My family's taking a personal vacation to a safari in Ohio in June. But while we're in Ohio, I decided to book Post Town Elementary School because I can't give up the opportunity. Once I'm in Ohio, there's tons of haunted places there. So me, my wife, and my two children are going to stay the night at a haunted elementary school. So that's going to be a pretty crazy video because we don't know. I mean, these spirits are used to, teams and investigators coming in. How are they going to react when a family gets in there? My children are a little bit older. My son's going to be almost 16 at the time, and my daughter's going to be almost 14. But are they going to, react differently to kids being there as opposed to other investigators? We're going to find out. And then, of course, we have the Crescent Sanitarium, July 16th. Let me just bring up the one that was in my room that woke me up by pushing me to wake up. Felt scary and angry, but was warning me about the broke bottle and 5 gallons of wine. Yeah, I remember you talking about that during, the last time we were on your podcast. So guys watching this video, quick story, John was woken up by a spirit, but long story short, it almost felt like the spirit was warning him, hey, if you, go to the side of your bed and just jump down like you normally do, you're going to slip and fall on the broken wine bottle, I believe, if I remember correctly. So what may come across as being an angry spirit might be that spirit just trying to manifest. Like, it might have been hard for that spirit to say, hey, I got to warn this guy. So when it comes to you as like a shock or like an angry spirit, it may just be them mustering up all their energy, and that's the only way that it comes out. That's the way that it manifests. So, I mean, we don't know, but that could very well be it, and that could be. And that's honestly, when that picture flew off the wall, the first thing I did was run up and check on my wife because there's a picture of her and the dogs. So I didn't know if she was upstairs like suffocating, or maybe hit her head or fell or something. I don't know. That we don't know sometimes why spirits do the things they do, but it could very well be a warning. So yeah. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you guys are watching this on the playback, make sure you guys, let me know in the comments, when you want us to go live from these locations. Stay tuned for more announcements on more public investigations. We have a pretty good reputation with a lot of these owners of these locations that would love us to, host public events there, and share some of our techniques, some of our methods with the general public and people who just want to go on an investigation in general, and we're more than happy to do that. So yeah, John, thanks for tuning in for sure. Saturdays and Sundays are the only time I really have time available to sit down and do this. So I try to catch your show. Guys, if you are on Facebook, watch John. He does an awesome podcast. He does, everything from paranormal to sports. Click on John's profile. You'll see his podcast up there. I mean, we've appeared on there a couple times. He, was generous enough to allow us to talk about our experiences, and, it's a great time. So thank you guys all for tuning in, and make sure you check back in every Sunday at 5 p.m. We're going to keep this rolling where we just continue to talk about paranormal and any of your experience as well. We would love to hear it. So, yeah, John, we'd love to come back. Just let us know. My only hang up is I typically work Friday nights. So, next Friday night I have off. I'll let you know. I mean, I can actually schedule a day off at some point. I actually might have the Friday off of the week that I'm going out of town. So, I'm not sure what time we're coming back or how long I'm going to be off. It's going to be like consecutive Fridays, but I'll for sure let you know. So, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.